In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Now we shift to page 23, conversation. Okay? And there are understanding concepts. Number one is exchange moves and IRFs. Number two is conversation analysis. And finally, we have interactional sociolinguistics. There is an introduction. Of course, the introduction is not so difficult for you to follow on page 23 and part of 24. I don't want to bore you with so many things. So perhaps we have to shift to page 24 and find that conversations tend to occur in strings of related and combined utterances. This is something that we already know and it is clear for you. But for you to begin with, there is something called exchange structure on page 24. We are going to, in fact, continue talking about it in this presentation. So what is exchange structure? It is a bit requires a kind of understanding by you. You have to be very careful in order to understand what we mean by exchange structure. Okay, number one. And after that we go to page 24, 5 and 26 and 27 to find number two, conversation analysis, page 27. Okay, so we are going to talk about these two things. First things first, let us go to exchange structure. Exchange structure is actually a kind of, let's say, conversation. It's a structure within a kind of conversation as studied by, in fact, let's say Austin, 1962, but actually, and Searle, 1976, but they actually were studied by Sinclair and Coulthard, 1975. So this exchange structure, though related to Austin and Searle, is in fact highly related to in fact, these two guys, Sinclair and Coulthard, 1975. So this is a kind of approach to analyzing conversation. Approaches to analyzing the conversation. Okay, this is number one. Exchange structure, as I told you, appears at page 24. And there's another one, maybe for your next week, which we are going to talk about, as I told you, on page 27, and it is conversation analysis. Let us see. Let's begin with exchange structure. Line 1 says, this is the approach taken by Sinclair and Coulthard, 1975, and the Birmingham School of Discourse Analysis, England. They studied primary school lessons and found a regular structure within the primary school lessons. Some of you are teachers. Some of you are already teachers. Some of you are teachers of English. Some of you are teachers of maybe other fields of study. No difference. The structure of your teaching might be something similar to what actually Sinclair and Coulthard, 1975, took, in fact, introduced. Okay? And found a regular structure within these types of, in fact, teacher and the students. Teacher actually has got the whiteboard behind him, behind her, and a group of students in front of him, in front of her. Let us see. But the example is not from the primary school lessons. This is a secondary school lesson that you have on page 24. So on page here, line 2 says, they studied primary school lessons, but a good kind of practice is with this example taken line 4, a secondary school lesson, as you see below. Okay, let us see. The teacher, line 4, is guiding a pupil in coloring a map on the computer using information from an atlas. Okay, so the teacher is teaching sort of geography, maps, atlas. Okay, atlas is a kind of book full of maps. Okay, let us see. Of course, it is on the computer. Well, let us see what the teacher says to the student. There are 16 lines going from page 24 to page 25. Okay, page 2000 on page 25. Now, line 1 says, let us read the whole kind of thing like that. T here means teacher, C means student, a student, okay? Maybe the name begins with a C. Let us see. The teacher is guiding a pupil in coloring a map on the computer using the information from an atlas. Let us see. The mountain ranges, the teacher says, range is brown. The mountain range is brown. How will you know the mountain ranges? This is the question that the teacher asks their student. The student says, they're brown. And the teacher says, how can you spot the mountain ranges on the map here? What's the clue from the key? The student comes to say, the mountain ranges are brown. The teacher continues to say, only brown? Only brown? Any other colors? The student says, purple. And the teacher continues to say, why do you think some are purple? C, the student, because some are smaller than the others. And the teacher says, and the purple ones are what? The purple ones are what? And the student says something inaudible, cannot be heard easily. The teacher continues. Are they going to be taller mountains or shorter mountains? C comes to say shorter. And the teacher says they are actually saying something that is inaudible. And continues to say, the purple ones are the taller ones. These are very tall ones called the Alps. The Alps are mountains in the European continent, full of snow, okay? Full of snow, especially during the winter. The Alps, maybe in Switzerland and the countries around it. Italy, Switzerland, etc. The Alps are located there, okay? They are purple. So what does it mean? They are high mountains, okay? You've got to put them on this map. You have got to put them on this map, okay? Now you're sure you know what to do here. I leave you to get on with it, okay? And the teacher continues like this. So it is the kind of conversation between the teacher and the student. And it's a kind of directed, controlled by the teacher. Why? Because the teacher is teaching, okay? The teacher is teaching sort of geography, The teacher is teaching sort of geography, and that's why he says, what color are mountains? The mountains, etc., etc. Only to teach the students. Okay? So, it's a kind of conversation between two guys, one the teacher and a set of others as the students. Does it have a structure inside it? We say yes. The teacher-student conversation in a class has got something that we are going to talk about it. If you want to understand what we want to say, we are going to say something like page 26 on the middle of the page. We want to say that there's something like a kind of conversation that you actually see on this page, okay, this part, the lesson and all things that go right under it. Okay, let's see. Back to page 25, line 1. Well, first of all, this is not a real conversation in the sense of people having a casual chat. Well, the teacher is not casual. The teacher is teaching something. Okay? Here, men, let's say, let's forget about it. من واجبه واجبه ها. Okay? Anyway, there is an unequal power balance between the teacher and the student. It's not like this. You have seen the scales like this. When you want to buy something like fruit, you go and you have actually seen the scales like this. Okay? If you put some fruit on one side, it goes down. You need something else, a heavy weight to see on the other side to see how it weighs. Well, it is an unbalance here. The scale is unbalanced for the teacher. The teacher is on top and the student is below. Okay? The teacher has got kind of one chair in front of the students. And all students have got a very different kind of chairs. Different from the teacher's chair. Okay? Well, it is an equal power balance within the teacher. Why? The teacher is high, the students are low. The teacher does all the asking. And Christine does all the answering. See here, back to page 24, is the name of Christine, a student. Well, in the conversation, we have C. T, C, T, C, T, C. C, C here means Christine, actually. And Christine does all the answering. And it is the teacher who expresses directive. Do this, do that. What color is this? What color is that? Directive. Ordering with you have got to put them on this map. And commissive, expressing intentions will I leave you to get on with it. So you have to actually do something like a homework, of course, like a quiz, like doing something in the class for the teacher. Okay? It is quite typical of the structure of a lesson. A lesson plan is like this. An actual lesson is like this, not a lesson plan. An actual lesson is like this. Well, Sinclair and Coulthard continue to say, they said that the lesson can be broken down into 5 levels of structure or ranks. Now we want to continue with this type of, in fact, thing. Within this lesson on page, actual lesson, it's not a lesson plan, of course, page 24 and 25, this is an actual lesson taken from the teacher's teaching. Okay? Well, let us see. we want to find out about the structure. We want to understand the structure within this lesson, within this actual lesson. Of course not, I'm repeating, not a lesson plan. They said that the lesson can be broken down into 5 levels of structures or ranks. Level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let us see. First of all, let's begin bottom up. Okay, bottom up, like this. Bottom up, not bottom up. Okay, bottom up. The act is the lower rank, page 25. The new paragraph, line 1. The act is the lower rank. Sinclair and Coulthard build on Austin's and Searle's speech act categories. At the beginning of this conversation, I told that this is an Austin 1962 and Searle 1976. Okay, now they took this type of idea and developed it into an exchange structure that we are working on. So the act is the lower rank. Sinclair and Coulthard and the Austin said, Sinclair and Coulthard, both on Austin's and Searle's speech act categories, see Unit A3. But Sinclair and Coulthard's acts are more general. They are defined by the interactive function. Okay, when we actually find that there's an acts of speech as we have in the Unit A3, they are different here from that kind of thing. Why? Because they are more general and are defined by the interactive function within this exchange structure. Now, let us continue. Let's not talk about those types of acts that we already talked about, that we have fillers, etc., etc. Well, let us continue with line maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Line 5. Here we see that their categories include, for example, marker, as in well, okay, and right, and the mark and that mark a boundary between ideas or topics. So they include markers like well and okay, which mark the end of one part and the beginning of another thing, or part, and the end of one part and the beginning of something else, another part within the conversation. Number 2, there's something called an acknowledge. Line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Acknowledge, which is what we have called as back channels. Importantly, the categories also include acts such as cue, when you give a cue to somebody else, and hands up, and don't call out, which encourage a hearer to contribute. And evaluate. There's another act called evaluate, as in good, interesting, excellent, fine. Well, evaluating a hearer's answer. Okay? As you will appreciate, these are acts that occur more typically in a classroom than in anywhere else. Well, we are talking about acts, line 1 of this conversation, this paragraph on page 25, the new paragraph. Okay? We are talking about acts. They include these types of things. Number 1, markers, as I told you. Number 1. Number 2, acknowledge. Number 3, cue. Number 4, evaluate. Is it number Q? Number 4, evaluate. And 5, actually, you have to, in fact, count by yourself. There are 5 of them. Number 4. This is number 4, not number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 numbers, not 5 numbers. Okay. Number 1, I am repeating, it's marker. Number 2 is acknowledge. Number 3 is, in fact, Q. And number 4 is evaluate. Okay. That's it. And examples are given there. So we are done with one level down there. Okay. If you want to actually see it, go to page 26, and at the bottom of the lesson you have these acts. Act, etc. Okay, I am already done with this part. I have to, in fact, finish somehow and continue with other types of things on my next presentation. Okay, because it is already about 22 minutes that I'm talking. So it's the end of page 25, and I'm going to continue with this part, the last paragraph of 25. Thank you very much.